What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Before I get today's video started, I just want to take a quick second to say thank you. The channel just recently hit 1,000 subscribers and I can't thank each and every one of you guys enough for subscribing. It really does mean a lot to me. I know I say it at the end of every video, but I really do appreciate you guys. Anybody that's had something nice to say in the comments or on Facebook or DMs, it really does mean a lot to me and it fuels me to keep doing these videos. It makes it a lot more enjoyable to film and edit and do all the work it takes to put these up. So thank you guys, I really do appreciate the support. I didn't want to film this video in the garage today, but Mother Nature had other plans, so we're going to have to work with what we got. But today's video is going to be a 30-day ride review and just my thoughts after owning and riding the bike for a month, and also all the upgrades and mods that I've done to the bike since having it. And guys, links to all these parts will be in the description of the video, so if you're interested in anything you see here, just go ahead and take a look at the links in the description. So I'm going to start off just by kind of going through all the changes that I've done to the bike so far, and in the process of doing that I'll also be able to kind of explain why, as well as give her sort of a review as I'm explaining those things, and at the end I'll just kind of give you my final thoughts and what I think's good and what I think could use improvement for maybe next year's model, and just kind of give you guys my feedback of what I think. Alright, let's go ahead and start at the handlebars. One of the first things I did was remove all the safety sensors on the bike, which includes the brake sensors, the tilt sensor, and the kickstand sensor. I believe that's all of them, yeah. I went ahead and removed those. From reading the forums and the posts, people are throwing unnecessary error codes because of those little safety features, and while they are nice little safety features, I really don't see the need for them with my riding. The brake sensors, all they do is cut the power when you press the brakes, which, I mean, if you're learning, I guess that can be helpful. And the tilt sensor, the only time I could see the tilt sensor actually being necessary is if you maybe dropped the bike and it got stuck full throttle in some dirt or something like that and the back wheel was spinning out all crazy. But other than that, I mean, it's just not necessary in my opinion. So not only did I disconnect my brake sensors, I also just removed them entirely and tucked them into the battery compartment. But after you disconnect them here up at the bars, the wire is going to be going into your reservoir right here. There's a little Allen key set screw on the bottom that you have to undo before you can back the bolt of the sensor out, so make sure you do that, because I didn't do it on one side and I was having a heck of a time getting the bolt out for the sensor, and I was just fighting it and I didn't realize until I got to the other side that there was a set screw on the bottom, so make sure you take that out. After that, I just kind of did like a wire tidy on the handlebars, some cable management, just put a few zip ties, you know, in a few places just to kind of hide the wires and make them go with the bars. And then this cable, this is your front brake cable and it goes down through there. The stock cable guide right here is like the width of a pencil, and when I was riding I was experiencing this cable binding up in the guide and it wasn't allowing it to go up and down how it needed to, and it was binding my cable up and I didn't like it. So I just took 2 zip ties. I put one around the original guide and then I just put another zip tie around that. You want it about the size of a quarter, and that gives you plenty of space for it to go up and down in the guide. Also routed my front brake caliper so that the cable goes on the inside of the fork leg and not the outside, where it can get caught on brush and tree limbs and all that kind of stuff. Also, I put a zip tie right here on the guard to keep the cable steady. It doesn't come with the bike and it doesn't tell you to do this, but it's very important that if you do route the cable on the inside like I did here, that you have a zip tie or something to hold the cable firm here. That way when your suspension compresses, it'll push the cable up through the guide and not outwards into your spokes, because if it does that, it's going to rip your brakes all up and be a nightmare. So make sure you zip tie the cable here on the fork leg if you run the caliper to route the cable on the inside of the fork leg. Coming around the left side of the bars, this is a recent upgrade that I did and I'm really happy with it. It is a half-knee bar-end bike mirror. Got this from Amazon. I wanted something to where I could see behind me without having to turn my head, and this did the trick. I at first ordered those little bar-end mirrors that like kind of fold out and they're about the size of a quarter. They didn't fit inside the handlebars and they weren't really big enough to see behind you properly. So I went ahead and returned those, and then I got this, and I'm much more happy with this than I was those little bar end mirrors. It does exactly what I needed it to do. I can see behind me, see if there's a car, I can see it clearly, it's big enough, works great, very happy with it. One of the first things I did to the bike was replace the stock headlight with the grit shift blinder.
I believe these are out of stock right now and people are having a hard time getting them, but I just really like the aesthetic and how bright it was. The stock headlight's not very bright, and this one is plenty bright, trust me. And I just like the kind of rectangular aesthetic. And then to go along with it, I went ahead and got the ODI downhill plate. I just really like the way that it looked versus the stock plate. I mean, come on. Also, when I did the headlight install, I went ahead and added a on-off switch for it. Now, I've heard some things about these bikes shipping with different connectors for the headlight on the later batches. My particular bike, and yours too, may have the original oval Surron connector. I'm seeing that they're now shipping with square connectors. So if you go to order a headlight or order one of these headlight switches that I'll put in the description, make sure you check your bike first and see which headlight connector you have. I have found the name of the square connectors, so if you end up having a square connector for your headlight, just let me know in the comments if you want the name of it, and I'll go ahead and reply. The next thing I did on the handlebars was add this little Bluetooth music controller. When I wear my full face, I was able to steal these, I think they're called OTD chips or something like that, but I can route these in my full face helmet and have music in the helmet, but the controls for these are on the outside. They're from my snowboard helmet, and you can just press them and change the song, do volume and all that. But when you're wearing a full face, you can't use those features. So I just went ahead and installed this little it's like a Bluetooth controller. You can hook your phone up to your speakers, your AirPods, whatever you want, and then you can also connect this to Bluetooth, and you can control the volume, play, pause, skip, track, all that stuff. It works great, very convenient. I like it. And finishing up on the handlebars, one other thing that I did is bypass the start button, as well as, like I mentioned before, taking all those of the kickstand sensor and the brake sensors and the tip sensor. So basically now all you got to do, turn the key, and it's ready to go. No wait, none of that, just turn the key and go. I like it much better than having to hit that stupid start button. To each their own, but I like this better. Next thing you're gonna wanna do is make sure you get a Tesla keychain for your key. That way when the guy rolls up on you at the gas station and asks you what kind of bike it is, you can tell him it's a Tesla cyber bike and it's only one of 500 made in the world. Jokes aside though, this little gadget here has been awesome. I had originally got a phone mount for this bike that went on the bars, like those typical clamping style ones that you see. And even though it clamped pretty well, I just didn't trust it. Like if you were to slap a wheelie down or go over a big bump, I kind of felt like it might bounce out of the holder. So then I thought of this ingenious design. This is just it's for jogging. It's an armband for your phone when you go jogging, and you can get whichever one of these you want. They're pretty cheap. You can find them at Walmart or whatever. But the reason I got this one, well, one, it was like the highest rated bestseller on Amazon or whatever. It was like $11, and the strap on this one fits perfectly in the notch cut out for the charger. So that way it can't go up or down at all. It's locked into that little lock there. And I've been riding with this for about a week now. I've had my phone in it. It's super convenient because you can see what's up with your phone. You may not even need something like this anymore because you can just, use the controls on your phone, and I trust it. Your phone's not going anywhere. This is the most secure way to carry a phone on this bike, in my opinion. And you can see it just kind of goes under there like that. It's Velcro. Hasn't let me down yet. Moving on to the battery compartment. Is your battery rattling around even after you installed the rubber blocks? Well, what I've done is I've put a construction shim behind the battery here, and you just pump it up and it pushes the battery forward, locks it in place. Get this thing in there and it all fits kind of nicely right under the battery lid. I haven't had my battery rattling around at all since I've done that. Alright, let's talk about the pegs. The first set of pegs I ordered for this bike were the JFG racing pegs off of Amazon, and while they did fit, they drooped below level. They kind of like sagged down a little bit, and I was reading, somebody was saying put a quarter with double-sided tape in there or some nonsense, and I just, no. So I went ahead and returned those. I read somewhere, somebody said that CRF pegs fit this bike, so I ordered a set of CRF pegs. They don't fit. I had to heavily modify these even to just fit in there, and then also the part where it hits the frame is not correct. But I've got them working, and that's just what I'm running right now. If anybody knows, because here's the reason why. These are $30. Surron and Talaria pegs are $50. Why? Who knows? Probably because they can. So what I tried to do is find a $30 pair that fit. If anybody, I've also read somebody said that DRZ pegs fit from I think 2010 to 2016. If anybody can confirm What dirt bike pegs can just direct mount up to these? Will you please let me know in the comments? Thanks. Another mod that I've done to this bike is the Shimano brake pads. I did a video on those yesterday of how to install and just kind of a test versus the stock pads. I have to say they are much better than the stock brake pads, and after that video yesterday, they only kept improving. The more that I bedded them in and got them worn in correctly, they just kept getting better and better. So if you're looking for something that's a better option than the stock pads, but you don't want to shell out a bunch of money for Maguras or Hopes or something like that, try this first. I mean, it's 40 bucks a set, 40 for the back, 40 for the front. So for 80 bucks, give these a shot. Coming around to the other side, another mod I've done is replace the stock chain, which is an O-ring chain, with a non-O-ring chain. There's a lot less resistance on these. I've also done a video on these as well if you want to check that out. And I think I gained 3 or 4 miles an hour just switching from the O-ring chain to the non-O-ring. And it's just less stress on your motor and stuff. A little bit more maintenance, a little bit less element proof, I guess, if you will, but just take care of it and keep it lubed and it'll be fine. Another thing I did, which is pretty fun for the nighttime, is put these LED lights across the bike. Got a few under there. I did a video on this as well if you guys want to see how to install them, but just makes it fun for night rides, and it also makes you more visible out there for traffic, which makes me feel a little bit more safe at nighttime. I also softened up my rear suspension a lot. Out of the box, these bikes seem very rigid and aggressive on the back, and it's just too much. So I did a full video on the suspension clickers and settings on this bike if you want to check that one out as well. But definitely softened up the rear end a bit, and I'm much more happy with how it is now. Another thing you should consider is getting a bike lock. I've had this one for a long time. I think it's a master lock or something. Ooh. There are other ones that I've read about called Kryptonite, which is just about a U-lock like this as well. But from what I've read, they seem pretty heavy duty and harder to cut through to steal your bike. So I'll put a link for those and the Kryptonite ones in the description. Another thing that I've done to prevent theft is I purchased an AirTag and hid it on the bike. It's not a foolproof method, but it's better than nothing, and it makes me feel a little bit safer if the bike does get stolen, that I may be able to track it down. I'm not paying for a GPS subscription service or something else, and AirTags are just kind of set it and forget it. So at least it's some form of security if your bike does get stolen. Also for gear, I've got this chest pack. It's the same one Surron uses, and I've had it for a month and I really like using it. It's convenient just to have either your phone or just some things. I carry tools in here. Just easily accessible while you're riding. You don't have to take your backpack off or anything. You can kind of just look down at a stop sign or stoplight and get what you need and throw it back in there and get going. So I like this chest pack a lot. Another thing I just want to briefly touch on is the tire pressure. The book calls for something like 35 PSI, which is just way too harsh in my opinion, especially if you're going off-road or anything like that. I've even had other people tell me they've been running 30 PSI and it just makes the rear suspension feel god-awful. I've been running 15 PSI because I go on the trails and stuff, and I've also been riding 15 PSI on the roads and I haven't had any issues yet. And it's just a much more enjoyable ride with less air pressure. And you already know you got to get the certified race vehicle Honda red caps for the valve stem. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Also just did my first oil change on the bike. I used what came with it, and I saved this little tube because I'm going to refill it next time with this Lucas oil. This is much better quality than what came with the bike and a little bit better performance with this stuff, and Lucas is a good trusted brand, so this is what I'm going to be doing the gear oil changes with from now on. I believe this was $11 and it comes with 946 milliliters, which is enough to do 10 oil changes, and if you're doing them every, what was it, 3,000 miles, probably enough fluid in here to do oil changes for the life of the bike. I also did rise the front of my seat up slightly, as you can see there. There's a tutorial online about how to do that. I didn't quite go with the full one where it lifts it way up there. Eventually, I think I'd like to go 16-19 wheel set with this bike, and I'm hoping the 16 in the back will kind of level the bike out a little bit and get rid of that stink bug effect, because it's really uncomfortable.
So that's pretty much everything I've done to this bike in the first month that I've had it. So what do I think of the bike after riding it for a month? The short answer, I think it's amazing. It has been so much more fun than I could have ever even imagined, and I was kind of on the fence about even ordering this thing, and I'm so glad that I did. It's been so much fun to ride. I've just been smiles the whole time. The only downsides to this bike that I've found so far, and the only weak points, seem to be the brakes and the suspension. And the reason that I think that is that these are mountain bike components that have been retrofitted onto a bike that's not a mountain bike. It weighs 5 times more than a mountain bike. You're dealing with a lot more, power than just your legs, and those components kind of, yes, they're light, but they may not be the best match for this bike. But you have to be careful what you ask for with that, because part of the fun of this bike is how light and nimble it is, and I think the reason that they're able to achieve that is because they're kind of fitting it with mountain bike parts. I don't want a bike that's got 85 forks, or like a KTM 85 fork set on it. I don't want that. It's going to be too heavy, so you kind of got to tread the line between lightweight, kind of sacrificing on performance, or the best of the best, and your bike's going to weigh a ton more. So I don't know, hopefully in the future companies will make parts for these bikes that are specific for these bikes, and the way that it's growing, I certainly think that they will. Maybe like a mini moto company like BBR or Faster Minis, or any of those like pit bike companies, if you guys could come out with like Talaria or Surron specific options for forks and suspension and brakes, I think it would do really well. And I'm also very curious to see what revalving and retuning the stock suspension could do. Maybe I'll hit up my guy Chad at Total Control, who does all my race bikes, and see if he's interested in doing it. Who knows? But really those are the only 2 weak points I see on the bike. And although it is assembled in China, this bike, the build quality is not representative of your typical Chinese machine. That's not if it's going to break, it's when. This thing has held up pretty well so far, and I've got nothing but good things to say about it. And I guess the number one question everybody's probably wondering is, do I regret buying it? No. I've been having nothing but fun on this thing, and I regret nothing. The only thing I regret, honestly, is not having one sooner. That's it. Alright guys, that's pretty much everything that I've done to this bike within the first month that I've had it. I hope some of these little tips and tricks help you guys out and getting a more enjoyable ride out of your Sting. The most recent thing that's come in is the Shinko 241 trail tires. I'm going to be putting out a video next week about how to do a tire change on these bikes, as well as my thoughts and opinions on the Shinko 241 tires, so stay tuned for that. Again, guys, I just want to take a quick second to show appreciation and say thanks for every one of you guys that have subscribed so far and helped me reach 1,000 subscribers. It really does mean a lot to me. I really do appreciate you guys, and I enjoy interacting with you. If you guys have got any questions or want to know anything more about this bike, don't hesitate to drop a comment. I try to reply to everybody in a timely manner. If you enjoyed this video, if you would, I'd greatly appreciate it if you go ahead and drop it a like. And if you guys haven't yet, please consider subscribing. I'm going to be doing a bunch more videos on this bike as well as other things, and let me know what else you guys want to see on the channel. I've got a bunch more stuff planned with the Talaria. I've also got the 450 over here. I've got footage from Bike Week. Me and a couple buddies went to Daytona for Bike Week this year, and I've got some riding footage and just some like vlog type stuff when we were there. If that's something you guys would be interested in, let me know. And yeah, that's about it for this one, guys. I appreciate you. Thanks again. Peace.